All right. We can begin if you go out live now, please. Thank you. Let me know.
We are live.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for all who's in attendance today. Before we begin our meeting, we'll go into a moment of silence and a pledge. And in your thoughts this morning, would you please keep our county employee Brian Overcash in your thoughts and prayers? Brian recently lost the passing of his wife, so let's please keep Brian Overcash and his family in our thoughts. So for now, let's have a moment of silence. Thank you. And now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to call our our February 9th, 2021 meeting to order. And we would begin with the approval of minutes. Thoughts and comments from the commissioners or motion to approve?
It's Court Schmidt. I make the motion to approve the minutes for January 26th.
Randy, I'll second.
Is there a second? First and a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor by name, approve the minutes by saying aye.
Aye, Court Schmidt.
Jerry, aye.
Aye, Wayne.
Aye, Jeff.
Hi, Randy.
Okay. Krista, did you get 5 on that? Did you get 5, Krista?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. We would now move forward with the commissioner reports and comments. Vice President Baker, would you like to begin, sir?
This is Commissioner Baker. I have nothing to report today. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kiefer, comments, thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Klein. First, I'd just like to thank
You're
our
welcome.
PR staff and all the staff that were involved in the state of the county. It was another fine video production that we were able to do in-house, and a good recap of a difficult year. I know, unfortunately, our chamber event and our evening event at Hagerstown Community College was canceled, obviously, because of COVID. I would just like to offer, if maybe this summer the conditions with COVID change and we can gather in larger groups, I'd like to see about maybe a mid-year event, a mid-year recap to take place of the event that I enjoyed every year, receiving questions from the business community and citizens. So just something to think about. We don't need to decide right now, but maybe there would be an opportunity later this year to do a mid-year review of county government. The second thing I'd like to mention, the Herald Mail, I understand they made a business decision and took down the Around Town articles. I enjoyed reading those and getting a bit more deeper insight into what's going on into our communities all over Washington County. I'd like to see if they would reconsider that, and if they wouldn't reconsider it, they made a business decision, that's fine. Maybe the county could share those articles on our Facebook page. Maybe it would be appropriate for the chamber to pick that up. Just getting news and information out there about what's happening with some of our nonprofit groups, churches in the community, I thought was always good. If maybe the county could help pick that up, keep those raters if they're willing to stay on. My understanding is they were more so on a volunteer basis, but just allow the county to publish those updates in our communities. I think it's relevant to county government if we would be so inclined to do that. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Just wanted to add a comment there. I think the reporter from Boonesboro, Melissa Cipher, she's already started a Facebook page called Melissa Around Boonesboro. So perhaps we can help all the towns with that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt, comments?
The only comment I've got today is.
Porter, you have.
No, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Only comment I have today is I would like to I guess, support John Montrano's comment last week about let's trying to get back in person again with social distancing, proper sanitation. With our schools opening up, even in a part-time capacity, I think we should be able to do the same thing. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Court. Commissioner Wagner?
Good morning, all. Just a couple quick things. Then I echo what Court just said. I think that John probably has a plan for this, but I'd like to see us back live on the next meeting, which would be 2 weeks from now, or we're off next week, I believe. I'd like to see an update maybe on plans, what our plans are for our directors, getting some kind of a plan to get some of the staff back to work. I know there's going to be some adjustments, and I understand that completely. Still commend us trying to get our vaccines out to the older population. I'd like to see that continue. We still have a lot waiting, but it's controlled by the availability of vaccines. I understand that. And I also want to wish in prayers and safety to with the upcoming forecast again to our road crews. Stay safe if possible. They've done a fine job, and our staff, good judgment, and I'm sure we're gonna help them out on that, on trying to get to and from work. So, in the community. That's all I got, Jeff.
And thank you, Commissioner Wagner. Just a couple of comments. Commissioners, I sent you an email with a request for some folks for support House Bill 755 for disabled veterans to obtain a discounted or complimentary fishing license. I really don't want to know if you need today or consensus to move forward if you had a chance to read it, but I would like to see if you would agree to that based on a draft copy being sent out. Would that be okay with the commissioners?
This is Commissioner Kiefer.
Everybody okay with that?
I'm fine.
You okay? We'll get the thank you. We'll get the draft out for review. All right, thank you. The other thing I would also commend our staff for the State of the County presentation. It was very informative. A lot of great work was done and accomplished by the commissioners, and it was well demonstrated by our PR staff. One of the other things I'd like to bring up is that our PR team has been working with a senior COVID-19 vaccine assistance hotline for seniors over 65. And I have been told as of this morning, our PR team has contacted 850 seniors with a total of well over 1,000 calls for seniors age 65. I've actually spoken to someone who has called that number, was very appreciative that the county had reached out and supplied that opportunity for them to at least get an application and get in line. We heard on Earl Stoner's report yesterday, approximately 22,000 seniors still waiting for their first vaccination shot. And I want to commend our PR staff, and they've listed some of the volunteers. So if I would miss any by name, be assured that the commissioners all are thankful. And I have that Lacey Capshaw, Rachel McCarty, Tanya Davis, and Lisa Brown have all volunteered to help with that program. So again, thank you for our PR team for reaching out to the seniors and helping take applications on the phone. With that being said, concludes my comments. I'd like to move forward with our first, our staff comments. And I believe we have Deb Kondo up for staff comments. Deb Kondo, are you available?
Yes, I am. Good morning, commissioners. This is Deborah Kondo, Deputy Director of Human Resources. I am requesting approval for promotion of Kelly Fisher to the position of Operations Manager of the ECC, position number 1371. This falls under the Division of Emergency Service 911 Communications. This is a grade 14, step 3, annual salary $58,594.
And commissioners, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Randy.
Wayne, second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye by name. Aye, Jeff.
Aye, Cormier.
Hi, Terry.
Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Randy.
Krista, is that all five? Thank you, that's five. Deb Kondo, anything else?
Yes, I have another. I'd like a request for promotion of Doug Levine to the position of Supervisor of Operations, position number 1654, under the Division of Public Works for the Highways Department. This is a grade 16, step 13, at an annual salary of $87,464.
Is there a motion to support?
Make the motion.
Second, Randy.
Is there a second? I have a first and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye by name.
Terry, I.
Wayne,
Aye, Jeff.
Randy, aye.
Okay, that's four. Is there a fifth?
Yeah. Aye, Cormano Schmidt.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Deb Condo, anything else?
No, that's it, Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb Condo. Commissioners, if you hear a little lag time, I'm being told there's some lag time on my responses, so please forgive that. Next up for staff comments, I understand Susan Small is prepared for some comments. Susan?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. I want to provide you with a brief update for the lodging and hotel grant provided by state funding that the Department of Business Development has completed. In round one, we were able to fund 25 establishments, and that totaled $358,984. And in round two, we are just completing that today, and that totaled $222,477. The hotel lodging grant closed last Friday, and we were able to award 25 businesses in round one and in round two. So just wanted to give you that brief update. And then secondly, I wanted to bring briefly to your attention, there's a bill that's coming forward that I'd like to ask the commissioners for support for the Department of Business Development to provide a letter of opposition. The bill is regarding the enterprise zone, and it will affect both the renewal, which the county is up for renewal December 15th of 2022 of our current zone. It will also affect any future expansion. So we feel that the enterprise zone has been a great benefit to Washington County, and some of the most recent developments occurring and further interest in the county. So we're hoping we can get your support on a letter of opposition on behalf of the DBD.
This is Cormano Schmidt. I definitely support that letter of opposition.
Commissioners, thoughts?
Mako last week also is opposing that, with some of our larger jurisdictions, including Baltimore City and PG County, will also be opposing this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Susan, this is Wayne.
Commissioners, any other comments or consensus?
Support a letter.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Wayne. I support it too. This is Jeff.
Terry supports it.
Any other commissioners?
Terry supports
Thank you,
it.
Terry.
And then I did have a question for
Thank
Susan
you.
on the, I have a question for Susan on the motel hotel recipients.
Yes.
If they were recipients on the first wave, could they apply and be recipients a second time? Or did,
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Commissioner, this is Kirk.
Thank you. All right. All in favor of the letter Susan had requested?
This is Cormano.
Krista, was there five? Okay, I think that was five then. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, anything
Provide
else?
the House bill number.
I'm sorry, it's House Bill 805.
Commissioners, just a clarification, the letter that we're sending, that's from the commissioners, correct? In opposition to the bill?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Susan, is that everything?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, staff comments. County attorney, county administrator, any thoughts, comments?
No comments from the county attorney this week.
Okay.
Thank you.
County administrator, any comments?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, President Klein, and good morning, commissioners. Just a few things. I know it's already been said, but I wanted to follow up and thank our public relations department and the other departments that were involved in the State of the County video that was released last Tuesday. If you're listening and you haven't had a chance to look at that, if you go to the county's webpage or the county's YouTube channel, please take the opportunity to watch that. Also, if you visit the county webpage, you'll find an area specifically dedicated to the state of the county. So it's still up there if you want to take a look at it. Again, our public relations department, obviously the county commissioners and numerous other staff were involved in that. So I just want to pass on my thanks for that. The next item is, I want to remind everybody that next Monday is President's Day. So county offices will be closed on that day. There's no county commissioner meeting next Tuesday. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, February 23rd. And just a few other comments. I know two of the commissioners I mentioned this morning about starting to meet in person. We're looking at that and trying to make plans. So I'll probably be reaching out to the other three commissioners and see what your thoughts are about that. But I was thinking February 23rd or March 2nd at the latest. So we'll have more information about that. And the last comment I'll make is about staff is already looking into developing protocols and plans for bringing employees back to work. I'm sure that'll be a gradual process, but we'll determine the protocols that we need to follow, and we'll bring them back safely. That's our number one priority, is to bring everybody back safely. But I think it'll be a gradual process. But staff has started that process, and we'll update the commissioners as we move forward. If anybody has any comments in the meantime, just reach out to me. And the follow up on the hotline that Commissioner Klein mentioned, our PR department, that was their idea, and they put that together, and they answered and helped a lot of seniors last week. And I think Commissioner Klein did mention several other county employees who have volunteered their time to do that. So I just want to personally thank them for that. And I think that's all I have for today, President Klein.
Thank you. Krista, John, how bad am I lagging with my?
Pretty
It's a
bad.
couple seconds.
Would the commissioners grant me a moment to log out and try to log back in so I can maybe correct this lag time? Would that be okay?
Yeah, I
We'll
tried.
pause the meeting for a moment. Why? Okay. Thank you for your indulgence. I'm going to do that now. Thank you. Hello, Krista. Can you hear me now? Is there a lag?
Not so far.
Okay, let's continue the meeting. Keep our fingers crossed. Thank you for everyone for allowing me to log back in. I think we finished our staff comments. So on our agenda for next discussion is the update on emergency services staffing challenges. I think we have Director Dave Hayes, Dave Chisholm, Dale Fishak, and Ole Griffith. Please begin, introduce yourself.
Morning, Commissioner Klein. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Okay, as stated by the president, I have with me Dave Chisholm, Ole Griffith, I believe, may be on at another location. And then President Dale Fishak of the Fire and Rescue Association is with us. So we're here today. We've been briefing the commissioners on and off throughout the COVID pandemic, and then more specifically over the winter months of some of the challenges we've had in maintaining EMS staffing at the levels required for the system as a whole. We're here with a recommendation today and asking for a motion to approve the Division of Emergency Services, DES, to hire 4 additional paramedic firefighters that will also be captains, providing the division with additional paramedics to help supplement frequent shortages in ALS providers throughout the county. The report in brief is DES staff, along with the WCVFRA, or the Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, and the EOC planning and operations sections have struggled to produce consistent EMS staffing support to the 8 independent EMS companies in Washington County throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Attempts were made to obtain agreement and or participation in the systemic and dynamic redeployment of paramedics and EMTs with little realistic success. The inability of DES to deploy assets and the challenges associated with the independent providers and EMS companies have created lapses in advanced life support ALS coverage in several areas out of the county. There were instances reported whereas transport ambulances were only staffed, even at that point, with 1 EMT basic level provider, otherwise known as driver only, for periods of 12 hours or more. In working to develop dynamic staffing solutions, county staff have developed additional staffing scenarios that propose that the county hire 4 additional paramedic firefighters, also known as captains, 3 being primary positions and 1 Kelly relief position. This in turn will allow the placement of 1 firefighter paramedic under this ARF in the Hancock Volunteer Fire Station each day, adding depth to the existing plan to house 1 full-time firefighter for each 24-hour period in Hancock. The addition of the 4 ALS firefighter positions provides strength to the division's ability to augment the volunteer corporation's ALS staffing shortages. Paramedic staffing is not only challenged during this pandemic crisis, but it historically remains challenged with the continued struggle for paramedics throughout the county on any given day. The new requested positions could be hired off the current advertisement for the previously approved 3 paramedic firefighters, otherwise known as captains, which are an integral part of staffing and required for the SAFER grant. Hiring these 4 additional positions from the current list would also significantly decrease the timing to implementation of the 4 new positions. There are currently 6 qualified candidates that have been through the initial testing and could be moved into conditional offers of employment, with the 1 additional firefighter paramedic being advertised and hired in the near future. Fiscal impact in FY21 is $176,400.64, representing $97,400.64 being wages and benefits, and $79,000 for the vehicle and equipment that would be placed with the firefighter within the Hancock Fire Station, which would be an ALS chase vehicle. The total FY22, which would be just the wages and benefits, is $389,602.56. Concurrences are from Ole Griffith, the volunteer coordinator. Alternatives are not applicable, and the attachments are what you have in your packets, which is the map of the hybrid ALS chase support system. I want to add some background information to that. If you look at the map, you'll see more specifically, if you look at the red pluses, those represent ALS staffing that would be employed by the county if our position is improved today. And we would have 4 ALS staff positions that are strategically placed around the county. And then in the central part, that is our most heavily concentration of ALS providers that are on transport ambulances. Adding the 4 additional positions, whether it's at Hancock or wherever, is intended to provide enough providers that are either working on that given day or off shift and could be brought back on an additional assigned time slot to be able to staff EMS stations that have shortages. There's no question the western area of the county is geographically challenged to provide equivalent types of protection, which is why Hancock was chosen. We also chose to put it in the fire station rather than the EMS station because we continue down the road of the regional staffing concept, which is primarily based on the SAFER grant, but also includes the incorporation of the existing paramedic firefighters captains that we already have. I want to point out that we're not putting it just in Hancock with just a pick of the thing, and this is no way intended to be a negative comment towards Hancock Fire, but to give you an idea of their staffing currently, in the most current last 2 months, about 46% of their calls are handled either driver only or with only 2 people in the fire truck. We do have a full-time firefighter scheduled to be in Hancock that's already detailed there under the SAFER grant. And originally Hancock was going to be our detail station, which would have any extra firefighters we had working the day above the 3 in most stations. Putting this paramedic firefighter there, we would use that detail position to fill other fire stations around the county that are still struggling to maintain the required staffing of 3 on a fire truck. The other thing I want to highlight, and just to give you a synopsis of what we faced over the months, and I'm just going to give you the total days in each month that at least one or more EMS departments had staffing challenges. For July of 2020, there were 8 days. August, there were 7. September, there were 6. October, there were 9. November, there were 9. And December, there were 18. Moving into 2021, January, there were 12 days. In February, already there were 4. So it's not something that is easily fixed. And again, for us to have some opportunity to help the stations cover those shifts, we have to have numbers of folks. While the pandemic itself has certainly exacerbated the impact of staffing shortages, I want to go back and just reference 2018 statistics and compare them to 2020's. In 2018, there were roughly 1,598 hours that went uncovered. And in 2020, currently we're at 803.5. That only incorporates 6 months looking back. But if you take that and move that number out to a 12-month cycle, it's on pace for about 1,928 hours. So while the pandemic has certainly caused a noted increase, there still were enough issues in 2018 that this approach would be warranted. So that's kind of where we are at this point. I guess I'll turn it over to Dave Chisholm or Ole if they have any additional comments, and then I want to turn it out to Dale Fishak, who I know has some additional comments that he'd like to bring forward.
I do have a question for Dave.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you had mentioned in your comments there alternatives are not applicable. What does that really mean?
We don't have any alternatives in queue right now as far as something we would be submitting here today. That doesn't mean that there couldn't be alternatives draft. I'm not trying to elude that.
Okay, and then the other question is, when would these employees be officially hired?
So our goal is to bring them on board once they finish their psych and background and their physicals. And one of the reasons we're trying to move this through now is I think most commissioners have heard us report.
Okay, just give me a date. Just give me a date. That's all I want, a date.
I don't really have one at this point because we're not in a position of active hiring for those 4 positions. The only thing I can give you, commissioners, we plan to start an academy, which is where we want to bring this group in. That's March 8th. While they may not make the first part of that academy, that's EMT related things which would not impact them. We'd like to bring them into the academy so that they get similar, if not complete, training as the other 33 or 36 people that they'll be working with.
So if they're not brought in on 3/8, when will they be brought in?
I think the answer to that is dependent upon when we get back. If we don't meet that date, when we get back, background, psych evals, and the physicals. But it'll be sometime obviously after March 8th.
Okay, thank you.
So Dale, I think if the President Klein's okay, we'll get to your comments and concerns.
Please proceed.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. This is Dale Fishak, President of Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about the staffing challenges in EMS. Before I continue, just to check that everybody can hear me okay.
I've got you.
Okay, thank you very much. As we move forward, the Washington County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association was presented by Director Hayes the plan that is before you today, this past Thursday, and a request of him, of Director Hayes requesting me to put all the presidents and chiefs of my departments together and to hear his staffing plan. We had a lengthy discussion that occurred for over an hour and a half on his plan, and a lot of questions were asked and answered both back and forth on either side. Subsequently from that, my department took a stance that we are in support of gaining additional staffing. Matter of fact, that model has not changed, and that was heard loud and clear throughout the course of the conversation. And even prior to that, I know they have been before this body, specifically the EMS group, asking for staffing takeover, and that has not changed. What did change, or what is objection to the plan as presented, is the deployment of 4 personnel to the Hancock area. We do not believe that putting 4 personnel on a fire engine in Hancock is going to solve the openings that occurred in EMS stations. Once again, not opposed to bringing people into the system, just opposed to how the plan is presented. I can speak personally, being the ops section chief in the Emergency Operations Center up until December 31st, that I understand the openings and the shortfalls that happened in EMS. As a matter of fact, I had my team working on Christmas Day to try to solve those issues. The issue really resolves around people being deployable to backfill the shortfalls of ALS or EMT BLS service in the stations. That is where we really need to get the coverage. During that time, there was a reach out and ask of DES if they could support us with the staffing that they currently have in place. That was not able to occur. There was no depth on the bench for them to put overtime personnel into those slots, and we had to come up with some other unique situations to support that. As we move forward, I would ask, are these people going to be able to be pulled from that position and put into the open slots throughout the 8 EMS companies to backfill those positions? And that challenge has not been answered, and we have not had a chance to come back to the table and discuss that. So what I would ask today is, once again, we are not opposed to adding personnel to the system. We just need to figure out how we can deploy those personnel to the best positions, and we feel as the association that they need to go into EMS companies. And also ask that the staffing continues to be built out. So I would ask that there may be a time for us to get back together as a group. Once again, we were notified of this on Thursday evening, asked to make a sound decision in an hour and a half long conversation on a phone conference call, and we could not get through all the issues that we had between the two groups. I cannot iterate enough that we're not opposed to staffing. We just would like to have an option to discuss how this is being deployed. That is where the root of this that we are opposed to. So with that, that's my summary. I know I've spoken to each of you, and I have also given some written communications, so you have the background.
Yeah, this is Randy.
Thank you for the time.
Can I make a comment or concern?
Go ahead, Randy.
And I understand what you're saying, Dale, and I understand completely. We've been briefed on this. I mean, this is a trend that's been going on for quite a while where you know, and once it's disclosed to the commissioners, I think we have a duty to fix it. And I understand your issue is mostly with deployment. Well, that can be worked out later. Here's the problem I have with all this. I've got several emails and several phone calls on this, and we know we have a problem. Everybody's admitted we have a problem. Now, all of a sudden, when we're trying to fix it, at least leave it open for more discussion after we fix it by hiring 4 paramedics. Everybody's got a plan. Well, I guess my concern is why, if we knew we had a problem in the community with this, why didn't we jump, or not us, the county, we've been working on it. Why didn't everybody jump and have that plan 3 months ago, or when we were in terrible shortages over the holidays, especially? I know COVID has a lot to do with it, but I just listened to the trend. We had, I think I added up what Dave said, 73 total shortages. So with that being said, I have, me personally, I just don't understand why now there's a whole lot of opposition to it when we had, we knew about this problem and we were trying to fix it. And then all of a sudden we come up with a fix. At least, man, we can talk about deployment anytime, but we need to fix it now. We need to get this in process. And you know what happens? It's like minor business. When something's disclosed to me that we got a problem with public safety, it's my duty to disclose that, which we're doing now, that we have a problem. We've had a problem for quite a while. Then it's my duty to fix it. Because you know what the headlines are going to say? The headlines are going to say, Wagner knew about it. There was a catastrophic event, whether it be multiple car crash or everything, and Wagner did nothing about it. And it could only be, not only Wagner, it could be 4 other commissioners. So the buck stops with us. So, I'm just at the point where we can't let this go on. But it's public safety. That's my concern.
So Randy, if I can answer that, we did not kick the can, so to speak, down the road. I know that I have personally appeared before this board and discussed these shortfalls. I can tell you, as a group, both DES, the association, the EOC, has been working to correct those shortfalls for several months. I know personally that we spent many hours prior to the Thanksgiving holiday time working on that, actually worked through Thanksgiving Day, and as I previously spoke, developed and tried to work out a plan on Christmas Day when these shortfalls happened. So we are aware, we are working. The struggle really boils down to, we have 8 independent corporations in the EMS side, and we're trying to bring them together to operate as one. And I do hear your argument that you're made aware and we need to make a correction. I'm not opposed to that correction. Neither is the association opposed to a correction. We just don't believe that the deployment is the correct model. However, if we move forward today to hire 4 people, that is perfect. That is what we want. We want help and depth on the bench in the EMS system and fire system as well. We just don't believe that it's the correct deployment model, and that's where we really stand today. So I don't want you to believe that we haven't been working on this. We have, and I know I've talked to you personally about this in several formats. So both sides have worked very hard, and kudos to the DES side and kudos to my member company sides. We have tried to resolve this. We just are not in a position that has occurred. So I do hear you, and I do hear that you're concerned, and now that you're made aware that you need to move forward. So thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Dave. That's all I had.
This is
I'm not against revisiting
Correct.
deployment. I just want to get it done today as far as getting us in process of having our extra help.
this
Director Hayes, do you need to speak from your presentation?
This is Court Management. I've got a quick question, if it's all right, for Director Hayes. Dale Fishak, you had a great comment there saying adding to the bench. And so I know you said we had 6 other people that are already in the hiring phase. If we hired those 4 of them, how many of them would come from current positions in the companies that we're not actually adding any positions, we're just changing their position?
Mr. Mino Smith, I think this is Dave Hayes. I think you're directing that to me.
Yes.
So we know who the 6 are. That would be 6 of the 7. And if we were to hire that entire group, which is our proposal, we would bring 2 out of the current EMS full-time ranks. And one of the things I want to point out, 2 things I'd like to point out real quick while I've got a minute, is even though we would be hiring them, those 2 positions out of the EMS companies, they still are in the Washington County EMS system and available to help Washington County holistically. And that's a different scenario when we lose them to other jurisdictions outside of the county. The second thing, and I appreciate President Fishak pointing out that they're not opposed to hiring the 4 positions. It's just a deployment model. But to that, I want to point out Hancock is their home. So that's on days where they're not needed elsewhere, they would be in Hancock married with the 2nd firefighter that comes to us under the SAFER grant. On days where we need to dynamically redeploy, we would have several options there. 2 of those most specific would be to pick that provider up and move them elsewhere and place them in a station to provide primary ALS staffing. There's actually 3 options. The second one would be to hire somebody back on overtime to do the same thing. Or the third one would be to provide advanced life support chase service, which is why we put a chase vehicle with them. And again, I'll go back to the map. If you look at that map, you'll see the 4 red pluses or crosses, whatever you want to call those, represent county ALS resources that are strategically placed around the county. And while maybe not the absolute preferred deployment, certainly can rendezvous with ambulances that are staffed BLS and provide advanced life support services. And we're not proposing switching to that model, but I would reference just to the east of us, Frederick County has lived on that model just about forever. So it's not an unfamiliar deployment model, and it's also not a model that cannot work, certainly in support of what we consider normally transport-based ambulances.
I have another follow-up question then. So if we hire these people, we're going to lose 2 from the companies. From what I know, we have 2 open positions in Smithsburg and 2 open positions in Halfway. I've heard that there's open positions in Clear Spring. I know under our current MOUs, they're required to give the county a certain amount of hours or days of staffing.
Right.
If we're pulling from them, and I don't know what they're doing on trying to hire these open positions, but we have to make sure that we're giving them the support for hiring those positions, keeping those positions, but at the same time, we have to make sure that they're doing it. Because if we're just sitting there hiring and bringing staff over and they're not doing it, then we're also helping continuing this problem. So there's got to be a balance of supporting them and also holding them accountable for the MOUs at the same time. Like everyone said, is deepening the bench so that we don't have these days of not having an ALS provider or an ambulance down or a driver only. I'm definitely in support of hiring this. I'm not 100% on pace with the deployment method.
Understood. And I will speak to the MOU side of things. There definitely are conversations that should and need to be occurring relative to that. But I think we also acknowledge it is possible that some of the stations may be at a position where they are doing all that they can do relative to hiring. And that's where these particular types of positions, our intention is to try to help them as we work through that MOU and not go in and just level a hammer and say, hey, you're not meeting the MOU, but we don't have anything to help you either. So
that's why I said there's a fine balance there, but we need to make sure that we're looking at that and helping them hire at the same time and doing what we can. But I think Randy said it best, that this is public safety and we need to make sure that it's taken care of. So
absolutely, that's a great point, Commissioner.
Yeah. Hey,
Fishak, may I answer some of your questions as well? actually caution you in when you asked about the staffing shortfall, the answer was only referred to the 6 or 7 ALS providers we were going to bring forward. I would like to remind you that there may also be a staffing shortfall with the 33 that are brought over on the SAFER grant, as we may bring people that are currently in the system, i.e. maybe EMT firefighters that are currently working full-time over to that position, which then also creates a shortfall in the EMS department. So you asked a pointed question and Dave did answer it directly, but I think when you want to talk about the shortfall that could occur, we would need to look at the total group that's going to be brought on board here, likely in March 8th or shortly after, with the additional of these paramedic firefighter captain positions. And then I do echo Dave's response on the MOUs. We do need to circle around to that and work on that and get the companies online with compliance. But I'm also with him. You can't put a sledgehammer on them if we don't have some solutions for them. So that's something that we can work hand in hand in DES and myself, and I'm looking forward to moving forward with that.
Commissioner Baker, did you have some comments?
Yeah. I'm mainly concerned right now with the hiring of the four personnel today. And for me, based on some of the dates that Dave had provided on the academy, I guess my question is to Dale. Dale, how long would it take for you to pull your, I believe, your presidents and chiefs together to have some sort of an emergency meeting to discuss the deployment models and to discuss the hirings that we're considering today?
To answer your question, Mr. Baker, I can make that happen as short as 24 hours notice. I mean, I would think if that's the direction as we leave today, I would launch and look for a meeting tomorrow evening of that group. And I most likely would do that as an in-person meeting since we're going to do a negotiation, but we can move quickly.
Yeah. See, that would be important to me to make sure that we have all parties input because I'm not perfect, and maybe maybe you'll bring something to the commissioners that need to be tweaked. So if that could happen in 48 hours, that would get us to Thursday. I don't think we meet next week, and I think we want to get this off of our plate before 2 weeks. Why couldn't we have some sort of an emergency meeting on Friday afternoon, and let's get moving forward with this, and let's hear everybody's that's got a stake in the game.
Terry, I'm not in agreement that unless they're going to come back and we're going to tweak it and hire 6 or 8 people, we can move forward and hire these 4 people and include all the associated parties in deployment negotiations afterwards. To me, no offense.
I'm not.
We need to hire those 4 today and include everybody in deployment discussions, but we can have our emergency meeting today and put public safety first today and work with our partners to cooperate on deployment. Always glad to work with them.
Well, we're always putting public safety first. Again, Dave's not even going to hire these people for several months out, and it looks like the academy dates aren't going to be confirmed for the new hires, so I don't know what we're stalling on. We're not really stalling on anything. All we're doing is just,
I have an emergency meeting. Unless it's going to be suggested we're going to hire more than 4, let's come to agreement, vote to hire the 4, and in the recommended motion, there's no demand on the deployment. So I'm always willing to work with our partners, but I'm going to support hiring 4 people and moving on today. And
that's fine.
Is there anything else?
This is Mr.
Peter, are you trying to comment? Go ahead, please.
This is
Wayne,
I have a quick question.
Thank you.
With that timeline there. So Director Hayes, you're wanting these people to start at March 8th, correct? In the academy.
We would like to meet that, but honestly, I'm not sure we can get these last 4 in on the 8th. But we'd like to be as close to behind that as we can so that they can fold into the academy.
So
again,
if we approve them today, you don't think they'd be able to get there by the 8th?
I don't think we can get there by the 8th, but potentially a week or two after that, we would have an option to get them into the academy. But what I want to say with the academy, we've designed the academy with EMT as one of the first things, EVOC, one of the first things that these folks, even if they miss the EMT part, they're paramedics. They wouldn't benefit from that anyway. So we believe we can fold them into the academy if we get approval to move forward here. But what I wanted to say, and I think it might answer a little bit of Commissioner Baker's concerns about getting input for the deployment side of things, is as you read the motion, the motion doesn't dictate where they absolutely have to be deployed. We would still walk out of here with the intention of looking at Hancock, but I have no issue of trying to work with the association in trying to get to consensus on the deployment model, because that's where I always like to be anyway. And I don't like that we're here today and we're not in agreement, but there wasn't a real good option outside of that. So I would still advocate, I think, what President Klein said is move us forward. Let us start the hiring process and get these people moved through the hiring process. And we will attempt to work with the association leadership on the deployment model. And it may be Hancock once we get there. Maybe it won't. I can't answer that. But if that's the consensus of the commissioners, we're willing
Director Hayes, excuse the interruption. I think Mr. Kiefer was trying to get comments on earlier. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I need to have Commissioner Kiefer's comments. Wayne, are you with us?
Thank you, Commissioner Klein.
You're welcome.
This is Wayne. I could move forward with this plan today. I don't mind waiting a couple more days, but this is how I see it. I see this as part of the larger SAFER grant that we applied for. Something along these lines were coming forward. That has been discussed for quite a while. I would like to see a better presentation have been made to the association. I'm not sure if the full ESAC committee viewed this either. I don't know what a perfect plan looks like, and I'm not sure if any of us sitting here knows what a perfect plan looks like. I don't think anything can be accounted for. Just last night here in Hancock, as I understand it, there was an incident. For some reason, a helicopter couldn't make it, whether it was weather or availability, and a patient had to be driven by our local EMS to Baltimore. That takes that EMS out of commission for several hours, probably half a shift, if not more. And I'm sure those scenarios are duplicated with our companies all over the county. One thing I see that I would like, if we could maybe augment the motion just ever so slightly, approve what's presented to us, but one of the hiccups, one of the concerns among our companies and people I've heard from seems to be there's no MOUs among those companies about how to house the staffing, billing, recovery, things along those lines. So I would like to move forward today with approving the motion as presented to us, but also adding the caveat that we have the related MOU in place and maybe set a deadline of 30 days.
Is that a motion, Wayne? You're making that as a motion?
If you'll accept it as a motion, I'll make that a motion.
I'll accept that as a motion. Is there a second?
Can I
need a second for discussion.
Court Meinelschmidt, I'll second that motion, but if I could add an amendment to that motion, because I 100% agree, I'd like to get the hiring processes started, and I completely agree with you, Commissioner Kiefer, with the having the MOU in place before these are in there. But I also would like to review the current MOUs that are in there at the same time.
Commissioners, acceptable? Review the current MOUs?
I think that's just fine. I think the MOUs related to the staffing here right now should probably be on a 30-day timeline. And I would like those discussions to take place with the association members. And then those larger MOUs that need discussion, I don't know if they would need more time or not to be analyzed, but I at least want the MOUs related to staffing done within 30 days.
Okay, would someone repeat the actual motion and second with the addition?
I'll make an attempt to do that.
Yes, sir.
I would make a motion to approve the Division of Emergency Services to hire 4 additional paramedic firefighters providing the DES with additional paramedics to help supplement frequent shortages in ALS providers throughout the county. And I would also add that MOUs pertaining to those hires be completed in conjunction and in partnership with the association within 30 days. And also all the MOUs that are currently on the books be evaluated.
All right, Commissioner
well.
Messerschmidt, does that coincide with your thoughts on your addendum?
Yep, I am good with that.
Okay.
Yep, I think, yeah, we need to review those. MOU is perfect. I will, Commissioner Kiefer, can I add one additional thing now
Please
that we're thinking about it? Is that the Department of Emergency Services will report back to us with a staffing plan for these 4 additional employees.
Sure. All right, everybody okay with the way the motion's been stated? If I have a first and a second, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye by name. Jeff, aye.
Lionel Schmidt.
Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Randy.
Is that 4 or 5, Krista? Okay, do we have, I didn't hear from Terry. Do we have Terry on the line?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay, so take your time.
Yeah.
All right.
Can
Okay,
you
we
hear me now?
had a vote on the
Terry
motion.
is a no. Terry is a
Okay.
no.
Thank you. That's 4-1. The motion passed. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate all the input from everyone. Proceeding with our agenda, the presentation of the 2022-2031 capital budget. Sarah Graves and team, please introduce yourself and the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer, here with Kelsey Mays, Deputy Director of Budget and Finance, to present to you Draft 1 of the fiscal year 22 Capital Improvement Plan budget. As you know, a 10-year capital improvement plan is developed each year. It includes scheduling and financing of future community facilities such as public buildings, roads, bridges, parks, water and sewer projects, and educational facilities. The plan is flexible and covers 10 years, with the first year being the capital improvement budget. Funds for each project are allocated from federal, state, and local sources. A primary purpose of the capital improvement program is to provide a means for coordinating and consolidating all the departmental and agency project requests into one document. The capital budget requests were submitted in December of 2020, and they've been reviewed by the CIP committee. Project costs that were submitted exceeded our available funding sources by approximately $24 million. It is the Capital Improvement Plan Committee's responsibility to review these requests. All projects are ranked based on established criteria for priority ranking. Considering current and future needs as developed in the 10-year plan, available funding sources, and the results of the ranking process, the CIP committee determines which capital projects best meet established criteria for the current fiscal year capital improvement budget and the 9-year forecast. Unfortunately, not all projects could be funded due to limited resources. I'd like you to turn to the attachment that I have on the ARF and go to page A-1. This page provides information on funding assumptions for the capital plan. Funding sources in the capital plan are budgeted in each fiscal year in which they'll be received. All potential funding sources are considered when developing the capital plan. Some projects are funded with project-specific revenues or restricted revenues. And other information considered when funding the capital improvement plan include the results of the debt affordability analysis and cash flow requirements of each project. The debt capacity analysis is conducted annually, and it provides a method by which the county's debt position can be evaluated, tested for stress and affordability, and compared with other jurisdictions. The analysis provides the county commissioners and the citizens with a way to assess the impact of the bond issuance. The results of this year's analysis indicate that the amount of tax-supported debt that could be issued is determined 3 different levels, including a thriving economy, a poor economy, or a normal growth economy. and the amount was determined not to exceed 18 million in a thriving economy, 14 million in a poor economy, and 16 million being the cap for a normal growth economy. So as we look at this sheet in front of you, A-1, please keep in mind as we move forward with the general fund budget that'll be to you in the next coming weeks that the values below could change. As you see, tax-supported bonds are set at $12 million per year for the plan. The funding source below that is self-supported bonds. Those fluctuate from year to year based on requirements of the fund and projects that are in the plan. They are generally related to water and sewer projects or landfill projects. The third funding source is speed camera revenue, which is restricted. You can see that revenue is flattening out over time at $500,000 per year. The funding for the speed camera revenue is currently dedicated to the police, fire, and emergency services training facility. Once that project is complete, the funding will be directed towards the Patrol Services Relocation Center. That is a project that is 8 to 10 years out in the plan, but that funding will be contributed to the project and it'll build up over time to assist with the cost. The next funding source is, of course, general fund. It's set at $6 million for fiscal year 22, and then $5 million thereafter with increases over time. The category called other funds includes funding provided by, the highway fund, airport fund, water quality fund, solid waste fund. So they contribute cash relative to their unique projects that they have. And then transfer tax and excise tax are revenues that are also included in the plan. They do fluctuate from year to year, but the levels that they are at in the plan are realistic. If additional funding is realized for transfer tax or excise tax, those funds will then be restricted for future capital projects. Okay, so the draft 1 capital budget for fiscal year 22 is $50.8 million. I'd like you to turn to the next page, which should be B-2. And I just wanted to go over a couple things as we start this, how these pages are laid out. You'll notice this is airport. If you look at the first project, T-Hangar 1, 2, and 3 replacement, you'll notice there's 2 rows for each project. The top row represents what was submitted by the department or agency. The second row for that project provides what the recommendation is by the CIP committee. And then the third row, which is in red, shows any changes that were made. So that'll help you easily see any changes. Also on the left-hand side, you'll notice that runway 220 rehab and runway 927 lighting and signage replacement are highlighted. Because those projects are highlighted, it indicates that they are new to the plan. So that's another thing I wanted you to be aware of. Whenever you see that highlighting, it just means the project is new. The 10-year plan for airport is $34.2 million. If you turn to page B-3 and you look at that total column, you'll notice I just said it was $34.2 million. And where I got that was I took the $38.2 million as the total, and I subtracted the prior year appropriation of 3.9, which is right beside it. That's how I'm getting the 10-year plan, because you have to subtract that prior year appropriation. So the current year for fiscal year 22 appropriation is $3.3 million. You can see if you look, we're still on page B3. You can see if you look, you let your eyes go down a little bit, there's some categories at the bottom: local funding, other funding. So you can see the local funding is $255,000. The other funding is $3.1 million. So the total project cost of $3.3 million is heavily supported by grant funds. I'd like you to turn your page now to B-4. And recognize that for a lot of our airport projects, they are heavily supported by grant funding. We are entitled to $1 million a year in entitlement grant funding, and then we also are able to apply for discretionary funding, or the airport can apply. Now, the discretionary funding is not always guaranteed, and so I think that needs to be said going into this. If funding is not secured, these projects won't be able to get done right away, and they'll have to be pushed back for when funding is available. Are there any questions on airport? Okay. As we move forward to B5, this begins the bridges section. The total 10-year plan for bridges is $15.3 million with $1.9 million in fiscal year 22. Two major projects include the Old Roxbury Road Bridge, which is a $3.4 million project, $500,000 being appropriated in fiscal year 22. This project replaces a one-lane bridge that has flooding issues and is structurally deficient with a two-lane bridge. It is an 80/20 federal aid bridge project, which means that we will be able to get $2.5 million in grant funding provided to contribute to the funding. Another main project here is Halfway Boulevard Bridges with a total budget of $4.5 million. $1.2 million is appropriated in fiscal year 22. This is also an 80/20 federal aid bridge project, so we'll be able to secure approximately $3.6 million from federal funding to assist with the cost of this project. If you take a look at bridges, there are no significant changes. Are there any questions? Okay, moving right along. Drainage begins on B8. Total cost for the plan is $13.8 million with $1.2 million in fiscal year 22. The stormwater retrofits project is most responsible for the fiscal year 22 budget. There's an appropriation of $1 million to that project. This project focuses on efforts required to meet a regulatory requirement that was imposed by the EPA and MDE. It includes the construction of stormwater management systems, including bioswales, biofilters, permeable pavements, ponds, wetlands and roadways, parks, and other county properties to satisfy the NPDES requirements established by MDE. In conjunction with that effort, the budget also provides for the street sweeper and the associated operating costs of that function. Are there any questions for drainage?
Yeah, I've got just one quick question on that, the stormwater. I'm assuming the increased cost of that $237,000 over, 8 years, is all EPA requirements?
Well, these are estimates. The $237,000 was an effort to just provide consistent funding for the project over time. There were, some years where it was $962,996, a little bit over $1 million, based on some fluctuations, probably in the plan due to previous balancing issues. So it's really just to provide consistent funding. I think that if Scott was on the line, Scott Hobbs, he would agree that, the $1 million, it's a really good effort. It's what the county's putting towards, the requirements of this permit. But, it's very realistic. We may even need more money over time to meet all of those requirements. So we're definitely not overfunding it. We are trying to provide for the permit requirements through lower cost methods, which still requires the $1 million a year, especially since that effort is also paying for the street sweeping.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. The next page, B-10, represents the Board of Education. Total budget requests for the 10-year period is $161.7 million, with $15.8 million in fiscal year 22. The local annual appropriation is $4 million per year. Other funding sources, including state funding and contributions from the Board of Ed for any local funding required in excess of the $4 million, can be seen on page B9. I do want to note, while we're here on Board of Education, that draft 2 of the capital plan will show slight changes in project costs for fiscal year 22 because of last week's approval of the budget adjustment that came to the Board of County Commissioners, which approved an additional $1 million for the Board of Ed for the Smithsburg High School roof project. That project is currently included in the 22 budget, and we'll go ahead and make that adjustment in draft 2. Are there any questions? Okay. Moving on to HCC, can be found on page B-12. The total plan is 18.4 million with 2.3 million in fiscal year 22. County funding in fiscal year 22, county funding is 1.1 million based on previous commitments and 600,000 thereafter annually. You can see on this page that there have been many changes to the plan from what was submitted by HCC. They have received a copy of this draft and have been very understanding of the funding limitations of the county. They have reprioritized some of their projects from prior years, recognizing the importance of a second entrance drive widening project that they put in the plan. That project will improve the roadway from Yale Drive by creating a traffic circle at the second entrance to the campus located at the top of the ridge west of the amphitheater. And you can see that that is the last project on the sheet, second entrance drive widening project. It is spanned over 4 years due to funding limitations, but it is a priority of theirs. Are there any questions for the HCC?
Sarah, this is Wayne. I have one question.
Sure.
I don't see it labeled here for HCC, and for some reason I'm wondering if that was completed last year. Air conditioning in the ARC. That was something that's been talked about for quite a while.
Okay, Kelsey's going to look into that. Okay,
I
Kelsey,
say ARC,
can
I
we-
may have the
Commissioner,
acronym wrong. But
this is Andrew Eshelman. That project was funded last year. It's currently under construction right now.
perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. All right, moving forward to libraries found on B-14. Total cost of the plan is 2.8 million with 2.7 million in fiscal year 22. As you're aware, the Hancock Library replacement project has actually already been completed. However, county funding was not available until fiscal year 22. There was an agreement dated February of 2016 for the county to contribute 36% of the project cost not to exceed $1 million. So that's the main cost for fiscal year 22. The Williamsport Library replacement project was submitted this year as a request. That's why it is highlighted as a new project, but unfortunately was unable to be funded due to limitations in funding. And so while you can see 5.5 million was requested for that project, and that second line, which has a 0, unable to be funded. Are there any questions on libraries? All right, moving on. The next section is general government, found on B-15. The total plan cost is 15.2 million with 1.5 million in fiscal year 22. 2 new projects have been added to this plan that account for most of the changes. The first one is the county office building renovation. This is for 3335 West Washington Street. This building was built in 1936 and has not had any significant renovations in 40 years. The building is in need of system upgrades, including windows, elevators, HVAC, and bathrooms. The second floor has very low ceilings, no direct heat, or natural light. And so those are some of the reasons for this project being put in the plan. You can see it was requested at 4.7 million. It was reduced in total to 2.5 million based on funding limitations. But there is a recognition that there are some improvements that need to be made for that building. The other additional project is for the Courtroom 1 renovation. Funding is not allocated until 2031 in the plan, but the Courtroom 1 is the primary courtroom for jury trials and ceremonies, and this space does lack certain safety improvements that the other rooms had and needs upgraded, including HVAC. So it's in the plan. It's probably not going to be held at the 100,000. There may be additional funding that's required over time, but it would be some beginning seed money for that project. Are there any questions on the general government section? Okay. Moving on to B17 for Parks and Recreation. Total cost of $11.4 million with $1.6 million in fiscal year 22. A lot of the projects that you see here are funded at least partially through grant funding with local match requirements. These projects do depend on securing grant funds, and so in the event that they are not secured, the projects will have to be pushed back. As you take a look at some of these projects, do you have any questions? One of the larger projects is probably the North Central County Park project, which has, a lot of funding allocated to it throughout the 10-year plan. But the hope is that some grant funds will be secured to help support that cost as well. All right, moving on, public safety is found on B19. There's a cost of $29.7 million for the 10-year plan with $5.6 million in fiscal year 22. The first project that you see is the Detention Center Systemics project. This includes replacement of much-needed boilers, HVAC units, and the detention center roof. So there's funding provided in every year for those types of projects. As you go down, the fourth project on the page is the P25 UHF Public Safety Radio Communication System upgrade. That project focuses on the upgrade of the system's core components to enable IP simulcast and P25 Phase 2 compatibility. The goal of that project is to determine if we're going to either upgrade the current system while adding more proprietary system restrictions or opting to replace the current system with a P25 Phase 2 compatible open system platform. So I think those options will be weighed. We did provide funding to that project for a consultant, I believe, to work out some of those details. And as you notice, as you look at that project, it did reduce. The $700,000 per year was removed. The amount of funding left in the plan, or the project rather, was $200,000, and that is for the consultant. The other funding will show up in the operating budget because it will be a lease. So it doesn't go away, it's just changing form. It's not going to be in the capital plan, it'll be in the operating plan. And because it is in the out years, we'll have it on the 5-year plan. So we will, definitely have our eye on it that those costs are coming. If you...
Sarah?
A little bit, yep.
Quick question on the police and EMS training facility on 2023. We're not funding that $1.4 million. Can you explain that?
Yes. I sure can. Thank you for pointing that out. That is a change in the plan. The commissioners approved a budget adjustment last week, which allocated the $1.4 million needed for the police and EMS training facility. So that was reduced from fiscal year 23, since we do expect completion of that project in the spring of 22.
So
it is fully funded.
Yeah. So wouldn't that increase the 22 amount?
It will increase 21's amount, so eventually it'll show up in that prior appropriation column.
Perfect.
Yes, it's not reflected here due to this being provided before that adjustment was approved, but we did anticipate that we could reduce that 1.4 out of 23.
Yep. I just wanted to make sure that adjustment was done. Thank you.
Yes, it was, and the total cost would still actually be the $13.2 million. There was no reduction in total cost. It just shows like that on this sheet. I do apologize for that.
Thank you.
All right, it'll definitely be updated in draft 2 for you. The next project I wanted to bring your attention to, a little bit lower than halfway, is the burn building. The burn building project shown is for construction of a burn building out at the Police, Fire, and Emergency Services training facility. With the SAFER grant, our firefighters in the county have grown from 8 to over 40, and this project will provide for reliable training for those employees and others in our community. The patrol services relocation renovation, you can see is second from the bottom. It shows a total cost of $6.5 million. This does show funding being built up over time to help provide for the cost of the project. And again, as I stated before, that'll all be related to the speed camera revenue that is received by the county. There were 3 new projects that were put into the plan this year. Those are the ones that you see highlighted. The canteen rehab unit replacement, that's a $450,000 project. Funds are being built up over time to replace the unit. That unit provides on-site hydration, health monitoring, nutritional replacement for firefighters, EMS workers on major incidents that happen. The next new project is the portable radio replacement project for EMS. We do have a radio replacement program in the plan already, but that one was only for the sheriff. And so this one is for EMS. The purpose of this project is to replace the portable radios utilizing an AFG grant for 90% of the eligible cost. So as you see that total cost there, please recognize that some will be, when we did this plan, I thought all of it was eligible at 90%. I have had conversations with the Director of Emergency Services that there may be some other costs that we need to account for. However, there is a 90% AFG grant available for some of those costs. So draft 2 may reflect changes for that project as we move forward and true up those numbers. And then the third new project is the Safety Officer Vehicle Replacement Project. There's an Incident Safety Officer program which has been in place for about 10 years. It provides program and on-scene support to our volunteer fire and EMS responders. So this project provides funding to be built up over time to replace the vehicles that work for that are in that program. There's 4 vehicles total, and the reason that you see a reduction from 80,000 and 80,000 in 22 and 23 down to 0 and 16,000 is because the adjustment that was approved last week provided for the replacement of those vehicles. So now all we have in the plan is just a building up of funds to replace those in the future. Are there any questions on public safety? Okay. Railroad begins on B21. Nothing very exciting here. $1.8 million 10-year budget with $300,000 appropriated in fiscal year 22 for radio study and improvements. We'll move forward to B22, which is the road improvement section. The 10-year plan is $92.3 million with $8.4 million in fiscal year 22. In this section, we have around $60 million in funding in total for pavement maintenance and rehab, $4.8 million of that in fiscal year 22. Other major ongoing projects involve the widening of Eastern Boulevard, several phases in that project, and the extension of Professional Boulevard, both projects driven by area growth and economic development. Are there any questions on the road improvement section?
Sarah, this is Wayne. I have a question.
Sure.
The pavement maintenance and rehab program, that is the resurfacing of existing roads, I assume, correct?
You are correct.
Is there any update on where we stand with highway user revenues? How much in highway user revenues are being projected into the dollar amount you give us?
Well, we do expect a decrease in highway user revenues from last year, fiscal year 22. I'm sorry, did somebody try to say something?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Sarah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine. I do expect a decrease in highway user revenue. The latest update I think I have was around 1.7 million. However, that highway user revenue does not all get allocated to this project. Some goes to the highway fund for other costs there. And so I would just point that out as well. But I do expect a reduction, and certainly the amount of highway user revenue that we receive does play a big role in how much road pavement maintenance and rehab that we can provide. As you're aware, we used to receive over $7 million in highway user revenue for this purpose and for the purpose of providing for the highway fund operations as well, which has been diminished significantly. I know that they're talking at the state level. I think there are a couple bills related to highway user revenue and the amounts that the municipalities get. And I think that the municipality portions are almost fully restored. However, county portions are not almost fully restored. And we have to provide the same level of service with significantly less revenue.
Yeah, that, Sarah, you're correct. There's a bill out there that actually increases what the municipalities will receive. The total amount of highway revenue increases, but the county's amount does not increase.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else, Wayne?
No, Sarah, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to solid waste, you'll find that on B-25. The total budget $6.8 million, with $2 million in fiscal year 22. The only major project for fiscal year 22 is really the closeout caps for rubble fill. The next section is transit. That's shown on B-26. Transit has a total budget of $9.3 million, with $3.2 million in fiscal year 22. Of that $3.2 million in fiscal year 22, only the county funding is only $75,000. Transit does anticipate CARES Act funding for capital projects, and you can see that reflected here in the plan with their 4 new projects highlighted on the page, and that's done for purposes of tracking. Are there any questions for transit projects? Okay. Moving on, B-28, utility fund. As you're aware, the Utility Administration Fund provides support services to the water and sewer operations in the Water Quality Department. Some of these services include administration, lab testing, and maintenance for vehicles and utility facilities. The total budget is $2.2 million for the 10-year plan, with $200,000 in fiscal year 22. A new project that you see on the page is a local limits study. MDE requires this study when a wastewater treatment plant completes a major upgrade. In 2010, MDE actually gave a deferment of the study until the Conococheague upgrade was completed. The study requires an engineering firm to survey the entire service area of the treatment plant and identify industrial users just discharging to the sewer and to conduct sampling. The compiled data, along with the stream water quality criteria, are used to establish new local limits for the treatment plant and determine how they'll be implemented in industrial users' permits. So it is a requirement that they do that study. The next section is sewer, and that's found on B-29. The total 10-year cost is $21.9 million, with $600,000 in fiscal year 22. Major projects in 22 include the purchase of a dump truck to replace an existing truck that they have that's 20 years old, and that's mainly used to haul materials away from job sites when they're digging up materials in the road. Another main project is the capacity management project. That's being done in the Morgansville area, and that will be to construct a new regional pump connected to the county's gravity collection system. Once it's complete and operational, some of their pump stations will be taken offline that they have right now, the Morgansville, Morgans Meadows, Garden Spot, and Freedom Hill. And this will also provide additional revenue to the county because it'll bring online users that currently exist on the city system. Are there any questions for sewer? Okay, moving on to the water fund found on page B-31. The total cost is $5.5 million with $300,000 in fiscal year 22. The cost is mainly due to the Sharpsburg Water Cradle Meter Replacement Project. This is a project due to the fact that EPA has passed new laws that require all the lead fittings to be removed and replaced with non-lead fittings. And that is an overview of the fiscal year 22 capital improvement plan. This is draft 1. We will probably have slight changes to the plan in draft 2, and certainly as we move forward with our operating budgets, we'll be in a better position to modify any funding assumptions that we have in the plan. Are there any questions from the commissioners regarding anything you've heard today, anything that you want to hear in the future, any concerns that you have?
Commissioners, comments, questions?
Yep, I'm good, thank you.
I'd like to
Hearing
just
none.
take an opportunity, President Klein, to just thank the entire CIP committee for all of their help on developing this draft 1. It takes a lot of time and effort and expertise on a lot of different levels, and I really appreciate their hard work. So thank you, and thank you for the time this morning.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you to all.
I do have one question or just one comment, not really a question, if I may. This is Wayne.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Again, yeah, thanks to Sarah's staff for working on our budget. I know this is a very busy time of year for you. As far as our borrowings, it looks like it remains at 12 million. I'm just going to hold, hold my opinion on that for right now. I don't know if I could support that level of borrowing, continued borrowing. I know that's historic to what we've done in the past, but with additional revenues coming in, I'm not sure if I'm going to be in support of the full $12 million in borrowings. I was kind of under the assumption that we would be reducing our borrowing. So I just wanted to make that comment. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on our agenda, I believe we have Todd Moser. Please introduce yourself in the matter, granting of easement.
Good morning, Commissioners. Todd Moser, Real Property Administrator, granting of easement to the City of Hagerstown. Move to approve the granting of easement to the City of Hagerstown and approve said ordinance approving granting of easement and to authorize the execution of the necessary documentation to finalize the granting of easement. The City of Hagerstown has requested the county grant an easement located in the parking area of 3335 West Washington Street for construction of a public plaza. As you're aware, the planning, design, and funding efforts for the urban improvement project has been a collaboration between the city, county, and state. The plaza is part of the urban improvement project, which has been discussed with the board in previous meetings over the years, and renderings were shared showing the impacted areas. The plaza is also identified in the Community Coalition legislative agenda. The easement would grant the city to construct and maintain the proposed public plaza. The city and general public would have free use of the easement for recreational purposes, gatherings, entertainment, and for the temporary parking of school buses, tour buses, and service vehicles. Permanent parking consisting of approximately 10 spaces will be lost in the rear of 3335 West Washington Street with the conveyance of this easement. New parking assignments will be assigned at 100 West Washington Street and/or 80 West Baltimore Street. Temporary parking, loading, and unloading will be permitted. Construction of the urban improvement project to include the Maryland Theater and Barbara Ingram School for the Arts had previously reduced permanent parking for the building. The city is currently finalizing the acquisition of the Hager 5 property located at 43 West Washington Street. After the acquisition is completed, the city will grant the county an easement for the solid waste dumpster currently located behind 3335 West Washington Street. If the acquisition between the city and Hager 5 is not finalized, the easement granted from the county to the city would revert back to the county. Any questions?
Commissioners, comments, thoughts?
Hey, Commissioner Klein, can I just make one more additional comment?
Yes,
before-
sir.
As Todd said, obviously the parking, we're going to lose some parking spaces back there, and we're already addressing those. I will tell you that this will have an effect, at least a minor effect, on our wireless communications operations. Since the vehicles will not be able to park back there, they still will be able to do some loading and unloading, but it will have some effect on them as they come in and out of that building on a regular basis. So we've been working with IT, and we're continuing to do that to make sure that we can minimize the effect of that on the wireless communication operations. And that may include different things to try to do that. So I talked to Josh O'Neill yesterday, and I just wanted to let you know that it will have some impact on their operation, but we're working with them to minimize that. So just want you to be aware.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any more comments or motion to approve?
This Court Management, I make the motion to approve.
We have a first. Is there a second?
Randy, second.
We have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye by name.
Aye. Court
Wayne,
Management.
aye.
Jeff, aye. Okay.
Terry, aye.
Okay, that sounds like 5. Thank you very much. I believe that concludes our open agenda. I need a motion to go into closed session.
This Court Management, I make the motion to go to closed session.
Is there a second?
Randy, second.
First and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye by name. Jeff, aye.
Aye, Wayne.
All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate the input today.